Hello everyone, this is Jamie here. Welcome to the night version of the interior penthouse apartment. In this course, I'll be taking you through the process of turning a daylight interior apartment into a night one. Some of the lights have already been created from the previous daylight version, and some new ones will be created in this course to help capture typical interior apartment scene at night. So without further ado, before we start rendering, let's reduce some of the high resolution values previously entered to render the interior daylight scene. First, open the Render Setup dialog by clicking on this button and delete the previously created sunlight object. Back in the Render Setup dialog, in the Comments tab, let's reduce the render output size to 1000 pixels by 578 pixels. Note that because the image aspect is locked, the width and height values are relative to one another. In the Vray tab, under the frame buffer parameters, uncheck the Vray raw image file function. This will prevent the Vray from saving or overriding existing Vray raw image files while we test render. Also, uncheck the separate render channels. Most of these functions have already been discussed in detail in the previous daylight interior course. Uncheck the resumable rendering. Let's reduce uniform probabilistic value to 8 for test renders. Under the bucket image sampler parameters, because we'll be carrying out quick and draft renders, let's decrease the minimum subdivision value to about 1 and the max subdivisions to 4, which is extremely low. In the noise threshold, let's increase it to 0.01 to speed up the rendering times. Under the color mapping, let's keep the mode as color mapping only, because the gamma value of 2.2 has already been applied in the 3ds Max preferences. In the GI tab, under the ambient occlusion section, let's reduce the subdivision value to about 8 to speed up the ambient occlusion computation. In the radiance map parameters, to speed up the pre-rendering calculation process and have draft results, let's change the current preset to very low. In the light cache parameters, for quick and draft light cache results, let's reduce the subdivision value to about 600. Let's carry out a quick test render to see what the scene is looking like without the sunlight object. As you can see, the overall render still looks like a daylight render even with the sunlight deleted. The first step is to change the textures of the building outside to a night one. Let's start by clicking on the wireframe mode and choosing the shaded viewport option from the drop-down list. Next, we're going to select the building outside object and isolate it by clicking on the Isolate button. Open the Material Editor dialog by clicking M on your keyboard or by clicking on this button on the main toolbar. Select the building outside material slot. In the Basic Parameters rollout, click on its diffuse toggle and then on its bitmap toggle. Choose and open the bitmap under the name of High-Rise Night 0058 _1 _seamless _L. All these high resolution textures came from textures.com website, formerly known as cgtextures.com. As you can see in the shaded viewport, the texture is now updated and is more consistent with the night scene. Next, let's open the modifier panel and change some of the length, width, tiling values to match the window sizes of the previous one. Change the length, width and height value to about 3000. While the UVW map is still selected, use the Move tool to adjust the texture in the viewport. Once satisfied, exit the Modify panel and the Isolation mode. Let's close and minimize some of these open dialogues. Before we go any further, let's bring in a photo reference to be used as a guide for the overall look and feel of the render. Click on the rendering toolbar and choose the View Image File option from the drop-down list. In the View File dialog, choose this night photo reference. As you can see, This photo reference encapsulates everything a striking interior night photo reference should look like. Everything that's outside has a tinge of blue spilling through the glass windows, which is contrasted by the warm lights inside the apartment. The sheer contrast of these two powerful colors make most night scenes extremely appealing. The following step is to emulate this look and feel in the render. Let's minimize some of these dialog boxes and expand the viewports. Select the Vray light window and open the Modify panel. Click on its color swatch to open the color selector dialog. Enable the sample screen color and pick the blue tinge depicted in the photo reference. We can adjust it further in a color selector dialog. Next, let's close the control panel and create a V-Ray dome light. To do so, click on the light button and choose the V-Ray option from the list. Next, click on the V-Ray light button. In the top viewport, click and drag to create the V-Ray light object. Open the Modify panel. In the General group, click on the light type and choose the dome light from the list. Next, click on its color swatch and change it to a similar blue tone as the window light. Select the window light in the scene. In the Modify color swatch, right-click and copy. Select the dome light and paste it in its color swatch. Under the options rollout, let's make the dome light invisible to the camera by enabling the invisible function. Also, uncheck the Effect Reflections and the Effect Specular option. These two functions have been unchecked because dome light often creates undesired results on reflections and the specular of other objects in the scene. Let's do a quick test render to check these latest changes. The render is looking much better, but still needs a few more tweaks. Let's cancel the render first. While the dome light is still selected, let's change its name to _dome. Open the Modify panel, click on its color swatch and change it into a darker tone of blue. Copy this color, select the window light and paste in its color swatch. Let's do another test render to check the changes. The overall render is looking much better now. However, the texture of the building outside still remains unchanged. Let's cancel the render and rectify this error. Click on the diffuse toggle to check the texture. The diffuse texture looks correct here. Click on the Go to Parent button to go back to the basic parameters. Next, let's copy the diffuse texture by right-clicking on the diffuse toggle and choosing to copy it from the list. Scroll down to the self-illumination group, right-click on its toggle and choose to clear the current texture. Once cleared, right-click again and choose to paste instance the previously copied texture from the diffuse toggle. As you can see, the self-illumination image is now consistent with the diffuse texture. The following step is to use this photo reference to place a strip light washing down the ceiling gap. Let's open the Create panel, click on the Lights button and create a light in the top viewport. Once created, right-click and choose to rotate the light. Enable the Angle Snap toggle to snap the rotation to a specific angle. Using this tool is a lot more accurate than eyeballing the rotation. Move the light closer to the ceiling opening. Rename this light as _ceiling wash. Open the Modify panel. In the Options rollout, enable the Invisible function and then check the Effect Reflections. The effect reflections was unchecked because the Vray light object itself often produces reflection artifacts on other objects. Change the viewport to front and move the light up inside the ceiling. Next, to make this light wash down the surfaces in front of it, let's enable the rotate tool and change the rotation type to local. This way, the rotation will occur in a correct angle. Begin rotating the light so its arrow is pointing towards the surfaces in front of it. Let's do another test render to check the changes. The light washing down the ceiling is now apparent on the walls and the curtains next to the window. While the render is taking place, we can quickly go through some of the main render elements such as the window lights, the IS lights and so on. We could quickly change the colors and the intensity of the lights in 3ds Max to match more closely to the photo reference. However, the overall render is already looking good enough to be taken to post-production in order to control every aspect of the image without having to re-render anything. Next, let's click on the Render Setup button to open this dialog. In the Render Elements tab, we will select and delete all existing light selections and create new ones to update new lights created in this course. To do so, first select all the light selections from the list and click on the Delete button. As previously done in the Interior Daylight course, click on the Auto Vray Light Select Script button to open this dialog. Enable the All Lights in a Scene function and click on the Create Elements button. Notice all light select elements being created in the Render Elements list automatically. For more information about this amazing script, please check the additional lecture in this course. As mentioned earlier, the light colors, intensity and shadows can easily be changed in post. The final step will be to increase the rendering settings back up and to do the final render. Let's start by opening the Render Setup dialog. In the Comments tab, let's increase the width output size to 4,500 pixels and the height to 2,600,000 pixels. These render size values are big enough for high resolution prints. In the Vray tab, scroll down to the Bucket Image Sampler rollout parameters and increase the minimum subdivisions to about 4 as previously done. This value is often set to 1, however, because of the complexity of the scene and lights, it is necessary to increase it to 4 in order to smooth out some of the noise in the render. Increase the max subdivision to 100 as before. In the noise threshold, decrease its value to about 0.003 to improve the quality of the renders substantially. As mentioned earlier, decreasing the noise value will increase the rendering times drastically. As before, we will be using the Uniform Probabilistic option to speed up the computation of lights and increase its value to 32 for better accuracy. In the ambient occlusion section, let's increase the subdivisions to 24 as before to smooth out the ambient occlusion grain. In Irradiance Map rollout parameters, let's change the current preset to medium as previously done. And the light cache subdivisions to about 1500. The following step is to enable the Vray raw image file and rename it by clicking on its toggle and naming the file as Apartment Night. As you can see, the EXR, DPXR and dot delimited frame number was enabled as before. As mentioned earlier, this function also saves out the render automatically if it were to crash abruptly. Enable the separate render channels function. This function saves out all render elements separately. Click on the name toggle to pick the location and name the render channels. Name the file as Apartment Night and click Save. The TIFF file control dialog should be prompted automatically. Choose the 16-bit color option with no compression and 300 dots per inch. Finally, you can enable the resumable rendering option as before and click Render. This function is only available from Vray 3.6 and recent versions. This function should only be enabled before sending the final render. So if per chance you decide to stop the render halfway through, close 3ds Max, continue this render the following day, you can. Vray will know where the last bucket stopped rendering and continue exactly from where the last bucket finished rendering. However, the pre-calculation will be recomputed prior to continue rendering from where the last bucket was saved. This function also works if the render crashes or stops abruptly. The final render should look similar to this one. More often than not, you might be required to add people in your scenes to help sell the space and provide some sense of scale. You can find some of the best people to add in your scene by visiting gobotree.com. They have both 2D cutouts and realistic 3D people in their website. With the 3D people, simply download and unzip the file. After unzipping the file into a folder, you should see a list of files similar to this. The ones to use in 3ds Max are the ones named Standard. Back in 3ds Max, you can simply merge them in your scene. They also come at the right scale, which you can quickly measure by using the tape tool. I really hope you've enjoyed this course. The next one is the post-production course, where users will be taken through the process of transforming this raw render into this one in minutes.